Hi, welcome. This is the CaddyInfo.com Thursday night Cadillac Chat. I have with me tonight Texas Jim.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Excellent. We may have other people join us. We do these on Thursday nights. That Cadillac Jim's not with us yet. May be on later. May not be on later. Our friend Tim Carroll may stop in. We may see Kevin KHE from the forums on. And if you want to be on, what you do is let me know that you want to be part of our live conversation, and I will help you figure out how to do that. In general, we use small web cameras or a camera built into your laptop or your phone can work as long as you can do a Hangout, then you can participate. Number two, contact me on Google Plus, and what that lets me do is make sure that you get invited every time we have these forums. Also, I yell out to our friend Vinny at Cadillac Country Club. I'd love to have Vinny come on and chat with us one week. If you want to advertise your Cadillac-related business, let me know, and we'll have you on one week, and you can tell us what you do and talk to us about your business. And we're interested in that because we're interested in all things Cadillac. Texas Jim, is there something Cadillac you would not like to hear about?
Not that I can think of offhand.
Yeah, I think almost any Cadillac related topic. Now we want to talk to you like a person. If you just want to do a commercial video, then put that out on YouTube. You don't need to come here for that. If what we want to hear though is if you're in the Cadillac business, then you're welcome to come chat with us. I'd still like to get one of my friends from over at Crest Cadillac come on one night and chat with us about life as a Cadillac dealer and give us a little more insight that way.
That would be.
Texas Jim has sold cars in the past professionally and privately, right?
Yes, sir.
And so has some of that insight as well. Tonight I want to talk about sales. I posted the latest sales. GM's always kind enough to post specific production numbers. Once again, the best-selling Cadillac is the SRX for June. The Cadillac SRX, I think if you said the whole Cadillac Renaissance, if you said Cadillac style, if you said everything the designers have been working on, the last car in the lineup they would mention is the SRX. And it is the last car to have been updated, right? We've got the
Yes,
new
sir.
ATS, we've got the new CTS, we've got the new Escalade. Maybe the XTS and the XD and the SRX are tied, but I think the SRX is certainly vying for the oldest design, and it is the best seller. What do you make of that, Jim?
Uh, well, two or three things. There wasn't going to be one.
Good.
Uh, it's a useful vehicle.
Young families,
Young,
because it is a
relatively.
crossover, which means that instead of getting a boring minivan, you've got a kind of sporty car.
Yeah, I think it looks good. Of course, that's my opinion. Other people might have other ones, but I think it's a good looking vehicle, especially for a crossover SUV. It stands out. It doesn't look like all the other ones, but I don't think that's the reason it's selling. I think the reason it's selling is the suburban professionals and mama and daddy and two or three kids. They're still in school and they go to soccer practice and they don't want a Toyota minivan sitting in their driveway. And the SRX, I've had them. I haven't owned one, but I've had them as long as a time or two for several days at a time, and they're a useful vehicle. The back tailgate opens easily. It gets up high enough to get out of your way. You don't hit your head on it.
And it's programmable
Uh,
for height. If you have a low garage, you can actually
right,
program
right.
the back door on the SRX to how high it will raise, or if you just
And
can't reach it. But it's an electric door, complete electric control.
yeah, it opens and closes electrically. And you can hit your remote button As you're walking up to it with an armload of stuff coming out of the store, you can hit the remote button and the door opens for you and you set everything in the back. If you're taking the kids to soccer practice, they can throw all their junk in the back of it. If you want to go to the lake on the weekend, you can take your hampers, your picnic baskets. You've got plenty of room. They have most of the better SUVs. They have the uh, movie screens, in the back of the front seats.
Yes.
It's just a practical, useful vehicle, and they haven't priced it all the way up to the sky yet. So it's not much more than uh, one of the other lookalikes.
Now, what we saw when the SRX was side by side with the CTS station wagon, and Cadillac, I think Cadillac was actually surprised at the time, but the SRX solidly outsold the CTS wagon at the
Mm-hmm.
time. My conclusion was because it was about $5,000 cheaper, but I think also because it you sit up higher and it's got that kind of a more sporty look to people than a station wagon. But uh,
There,
but it and honestly outsold the station
but
wagon for whatever reason.
there was one other problem with that. They didn't build many station wagons. They wasn't on the lots. You couldn't just go to a lot. Okay, if you go to any Cadillac dealer in the Metroplex, and there's several of them, they'll have 20 SRXs or 30.
And
They'll
two
have a
station
whole
wagons.
bunch of them. You can just
Right.
walk over there. You can choose your options. You can choose your color. You can choose how you want it configured.
And the majority of people still shop for cars by color.
Yes.
The
Now,
color is supremely important to people in shopping for cars.
if you could even find a dealer that had a station wagon, he'd have one or two,
Right.
and it's take
Now,
it or leave it. Well,
let me let me challenge
go ahead.
let me challenge you with this though. The SRX is outselling any sedan 2-to-1. 2-to-1. SRX is outselling any Cadillac sedan line 2-to-1. Where is the BRX? Where's the smaller SRX? Where's the bigger SRX? Why hasn't Cadillac brought those out? Was it a mistake to focus on other models instead of finishing out the crossover line?
Why do you need it? You just said it's outselling any sedan 2-to-1.
So
If it
am I
worked, if
missing
it worked,
sales though because I don't have a cute little SUV like an X1 or an X2, the
why do
BMW?
you need it?
I don't have an even bigger SUV that still gets 25 miles per gallon.
It won't get 25 miles per gallon if you make it bigger. If you make it bigger, you make it heavier. You
GM
make
actually
it
has
heavier.
done that though, and they have a bigger SUV. The SRX is actually bigger than it looks. First of all, it's bigger
Yes,
than
it
it
is.
looks.
It is.
But so I think what we're missing is a smaller SUV because you go from the SRX to the Escalade. That's actually a pretty good step. Uh, you get a much bigger, more interior room at a cost in miles per gallon. But I think we're missing a smaller crossover.
I don't really know whether you are or not. If you go back to the typical suburban family, mama and daddy and 2.7 kids and all their junk, you can't put it all in a small SUV. It'd look like the Beverly Hillbillies. You'd have stuff tied all over.
Now, I do want to yell out for the SRX. If it sounds like I'm critical of the SRX, I'm actually not. When I had an SRX out for a test drive last year, I quite enjoyed it. I was fully prepared to just kind of say, yeah, I've got this car, but I'm not that excited about it. But I am a big fan of the SRX has a 10-inch OLED center console, and there were a lot of things about the SRX that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I could see the SRX as, a full-time daily driver for me and fit just fine. And so I was quite surprised. I was fully prepared not to enjoy the SRX, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, I was the same way the first time they gave me one for a loaner. when I had my car in for service. So I'm gonna take that thing home and park it and drive my Chevy around. But turned out I really enjoyed it. Uh, and then the next time when I had one for about 3 days, heck, we drove it out to went out through the country. Of course, other people won't know where these towns are, but Bruce will. Went out through Weatherford, out through Mineral Wells, drove out to Abilene, and then back. And I really enjoyed it.
Now, I did get a note from our friend Tim Carroll at Carroll Custom Cadillac. He's right in the middle of it. He's suited up and he's in between coats of paint on a car, and so he can't stop and join us in the conversation tonight, but he'll try and join us another week. And I totally understand that. He's a working man. He's busy shooting Cadillacs and doing his job. And even though here it's 7:30 p.m. local time, but he gets so caught up in his work because he enjoys it and can't stop to chat with us. Now let's talk the other side of the coin. The SRX is the best-selling Cadillac, sold over 4,500 examples last month. The sedans uniformly did poorly. They were off 10, 20, 30%, depending on which model you looked at. The ATS is leading, followed by the CTS, followed by the XTS in terms of sales, which is perhaps what you would expect. But so what's wrong with Cadillac sedan sales?
Price.
Thank you. That's exactly what my first answer would be also. But talk about that. Why is price a problem? Cadillac would argue they're very competitively priced against their target markets.
But I'm not looking for a $70,000 BMW or Mercedes, and I'm not going.
But BMW and Mercedes are outselling Cadillac in the $70,000 range. So
Right.
and Cadillac's offerings are priced competitive at each tier with the same BMW and Mercedes offerings, yet BMW and Mercedes are outselling Cadillac by a large factor.
Okay, I'm a Cadillac fan, and I've drove them since 1980, and I've had other cars, but I've almost always had a Cadillac. For that whole period of time, from
Yes.
1980 to 2014, that's 34 years, and they have just priced me out of the market. I can no longer afford them, and I've bought numerous new Cadillacs, but when they in 2 years' time they raised the price on the CTS over $15,000, and I no longer, just me personally, I no longer see the value in a CTS that costs $60,000.
Right. So you're not shopping for a $70,000 car. But let's talk about the ATS, for example. And I know the ATS, from your point of view, is smaller than you would shop for. But
Right.
what's keeping the ATS from selling as well as its competitors? The BMW 3 Series is selling 4 times better than the ATS, even though the ATS is identical to the BMW 3 Series in every way except one of them has a Cadillac badge and one of them has a BMW badge.
But people are not expecting the small Cadillac to be priced that high. I don't know why, but in various people I've talked to, a few people that have actually went and looked at them, my son was seriously in the market last week.
Yes.
And he went and looked at them, and he liked them. And now he has a good job. He can afford it. It wasn't that he couldn't afford it, but he didn't see the value in a $60,000 ATS.
Right.
And so then he was looking at BMWs. Now he worked out a problem with his car that was causing him to be in the market, but that's another story we don't have to go into. But he was seriously in the market, and I was trying to get him to work out the little problem he had with the factory on the car he has now, and that got resolved today. So he's not in the market anymore. But he went and looked at them and drove them and liked them, and he liked everything except the price. He just thought it was overpriced for what he was getting.
So how can Cadillac address that? Cadillac would say on paper, feature by feature, between an ATS and a BMW 3 Series, the ATS costs less for the same features that you can get in a BMW 3 Series. That they literally, the car is dimensionally identical. I mean, they've cloned the BMW 3 Series in the ATS. Perhaps the last generation of BMW 3 Series, because the current one is lighter, has according to the magazines, corners better, it handles better, is more fun to drive than the BMW. But it's out, the BMW is outselling it by a factor of 3. So is it the cachet still that people would rather have the BMW name than the Cadillac name?
I think that's a whole lot of it. And a lot of people still remember the smaller Cadillacs from the 80s. Some of the older people, especially, they
Now,
still remember them, the Caddy that zigs, you know.
yeah, the
And
Catera. And the worst product placement was when they introduced the character of Lisa Catera right before a Catera commercial for leasing a Catera. Literally, the character's name in one of the TV shows was Lisa Catera, and then they cut to the commercial for a Catera.
yeah, I don't remember that,
One,
but I
one
do
of the
remember.
one of the most obvious product placements ever.
Well, I mean, I didn't know her name. I
Yes,
didn't know that was her name.
that was on. I can't. I don't even remember the name of the show anymore. It was about an emergency room doctors.
Oh,
Of
that was
course,
why I
that
didn't watch it.
describes a dozen different TV shows, right?
I never have liked those hospital shows.
Yeah, yep. Okay, so now the classic model, the way that you outcompete Mercedes and BMW is you come out with the same features for $10,000 less. And that's what
That's
Acura
correct.
did, and that's what Lexus did, and then they built their market, and then once you had switched over and you appreciated the cars, then they were able to gradually raise their prices. And
Right,
so
but
as
they didn't pop you $15,000 from one year to the next.
right. So has Cadillac rushed too much to say, hey, look, we can charge just as much as they do and get away with it?
Yes, they did.
Because it turns out that they didn't get away with it, right?
They didn't get away with it,
So
and
how do you fix it now, other than putting money on the hood of every car?
I don't know.
See,
But
I
they,
think,
they've
I
already
still
shot
think,
themselves in the foot.
I still think the answer is instead of putting money on the hood of every car, you literally go rewrite the ask prices for every Cadillac. I want to see the ATS, a 2.5 liter ATS, start below $30,000, just like the original CTS did. When the CTS first came out in 2003, 2004, you could get the entry level model for less than $30,000.
Yep.
Today, Mercedes has got that front wheel drive CLA below $30,000 for the same reason. And so bring the whole ATS line should be right there between 30 and 45. In other words, a bargain, the standard ATS 2.5 liter entry level model should be $29,995. A 2 liter turbo should be 35 to 40, and the 3.6 liter should be 40 to 45, and that's the whole thing. You should not be forced to buy, the ATS pricing should not go all the way up to $58,000 or $62,000. I think that's nuts. The ATS is the entry level Cadillac. It should not go from 35 to 65. It should be
Right.
right there from 30 to 45. So once you get the ATS right in that range from 30 to 45 or just below 30 to 45, then you bring the CTS in to overlap that range, right? So it should
From
be in the range
35,
of
you could
40
go.
to 60.
Well, you could go from 35 on an entry level CTS, basically just a base
There you go.
car.
So give it a 15K range, so it
Yeah,
should be
from
35 to
35 to
50.
50.
Say I
50
would
is,
make it 40 to 60 just to give me that. Now where would I fit the XTS in though? So maybe we make the XTS 35 to 50 and then make the CTS 40 to 60.
get rid of it and bring out a real Cadillac.
Now it is a real Cadillac. Why would you say the XTS is not a real Cadillac any more than the DTS? The XTS is a better DTS. If they had put a D on that car instead of an X, you would be perfectly happy. You'd
I
be
don't think
driving one
so.
now. If they had named that the DTS, you would be driving one today.
Okay, I'm going to be back over there Monday. My my inspection has ran out last month.
Oh, we're going
So,
to sell it over an inspection?
no, but I've got to
Oh,
go
you
get
want
it inspected, and
to go
I
get
need
it
to get the oil
inspected?
changed. And I need to get the oil changed. So while they're doing that, I might have time to go take one for a drive.
Okay, so
I've been wanting to drive one. I don't really like the looks of them
I want you to
that
go
much.
drive one because to me the XTS is the updated the updated DTS. I
I might,
firmly believe the XTS is what the DTS would be if they updated it today. It's exactly that car. Okay, the ATS 30 to 45. Where would you price the CTS? I said 40 to 60. You said 35 to 60.
35 to a little over 50.
35 to 50 for the CTS. You would drop the XTS altogether.
Probably not. It's still selling. I mean,
It's front-wheel
personally, I
drive
don't
and
know.
all-wheel drive. There are people that want that, especially in the north, right? Although one should note the CTS is available in all-wheel drive also,
Yes, it is.
and the ATS is available in all-wheel drive, so you don't really need the XTS anymore. But the XTS is selling, 1,500 units last month's nothing to sneeze at for something that probably has an out-the-door average of 40,000 or so. But is it clouding? Is it clouding the market though?
Yes,
Because
I
the
just
average
think there's
person
too
can't
many.
understand ATS, CTS, XTS. It's
Right.
confusing. And so
They
make
don't.
the ATS the entry level. The CTS is now my premier. They kept CTS because they feel like they have some brand recognition there. But you say put it 35 to 50. Now that means
Right.
that you're only giving a 5,000 break, but 5,000 difference between ATS and CTS. I think you need a
Why? Why?
$10,000 difference there.
Well,
Well, what do you get for the
I,
money
I,
is your question, right?
yeah, I'd go along with a 10
See, when I was selling my wife
at
on
the
this
top
topic,
end.
she said to me, "What do I get?" Because by the time she wanted the fully featured ATS premium, which we did go and buy, so she has a 2013 ATS premium. When we were shopping for this, I said, hey, I called over and I talked to my friend Darren Parton at Crest, and he said, if you're going to get the fully loaded ATS with every possible feature, you should really look at getting the CTS because it's newer and more stylish. And a fully loaded ATS is going to cost right in the same range as the beginning CTS. And my
See
wife
that?
asked me,
Go ahead.
pardon?
Go
And
ahead.
my wife asked me, why would I want to do that? And I said, well, the CTS has just come out. It's a little more stylish. It's a little bit larger than the ATS, but it's a little heavier, won't get quite as good a gas mileage. So she said, well, I don't want a larger car. I want, the ATS is as big as she needed for what she needed. And she doesn't want worse gas mileage, so no thank you. So, so what, to your point, what are the features of the CTS right now that make it $10,000 better than an ATS?
Well, for one thing, the size and the styling. The
It's a little
styling,
larger,
the
a
styling
little longer
is
wheelbase,
something.
and
And
the styling counts for something, right? Its standard features are better than an ATS, but when you go full boat premium, if you're comparing premium to premium, I'll have to go study up to see what are the features available in a CTS that are not available in an ATS, premium to premium. I think the standard features are probably higher in the CTS than the standard ATS, but
Right.
I'm not going to buy a standard of either one. I'm looking for the premium, which is, a fully loaded ATS versus a fully loaded CTS.
Right. I would be looking for the same thing.
Now I can't get that lovely twin turbo V6 in the ATS that is available in the CTS V Sport. So that would be, but the V Sports are all the way up at 60 to 70,000.
Right. Yeah,
But
you load out a V Sport and it's 70 grand.
now let me ask you that question: what the heck's going on there? Why isn't there just one V Sport? Why is there a V Sport for 60 and a V Sport Premium for 70? Who thought that was a good idea?
That don't even make sense. The V Sport should just be
One size fits all, baby.
The V Sport should be a fully loaded with everything on it that you can put on it.
Out the door for 60.
And the only options is the interior color and the exterior color, and maybe some options for wheels and tires.
And it should have more interior and exteriors than an ATS. That should be part of the premium part of having a premium car. Is there's luxury and options.
Yeah.
On the CTS, you should be able to go in and specify, I want plaid leather, or I want some other bizarre color scheme, because that's a premium car.
And you can't do that.
And you can't do that. It has the same colors and options, or similar colors and options, and limited palette that the ATS has. But so the CTS V Sport, if I would make it cap the line, I would hold the price of it to 60 with the full premium. I would not offer it non-premium. Now, and don't even start with me about, by the time you do an M3 it costs this much, or by the time you do an AMG it costs that much. You're trying to compete with them, but it's not working. In other words, if people are going to spend that much, they'd rather have the M3, they'd rather have the AMG for the name value. And so you've got to get the seat.
If I was fixing to drop 70 grand before I went and bought a V Sport for 70, I would dadgum sure be cross shopping.
Yeah, but you'd also be
getting a lot of money for me.
You'd be buying a new Corvette, or 2 used CTS-Vs, or any number of other things before you drop 70 for
a brand new Corvette. A brand new Corvette starts at 53.
Yes. And so that would be an extremely hard. I mean, if I was going to spend that much money, I would be much more tempted to wait and get, a marked down ELR, because I want to try that whole electric car experience. Okay, so to fix ATS sales, we drive the price radically down to where it should be to begin with. It's the entry-level Cadillac. Price it between 30 and 45, no higher than 45 for any ATS model. And don't decontent it, dagnabbit. In other words, I still want the current premium package, which is to say the magnetic shocks, the Brembo, the brakes that it has, the engines that it has. Now, would you leave the 2.5 liter 200 horsepower as the standard engine, or would you start off with a $30,000 2-liter turbo in the ATS?
I'd start out with the 2-liter turbo and then have the option of the V6.
And just 2 engines?
Yes.
You think their 3-engine strategy is a waste?
What?
You think the 3-engine strategy is a waste?
Yes.
Now, I don't know, because I do see people that buy the entry-level engine in the CTS and the ATS and are happy with it, a 200 horsepower engine. And so, I don't know. I'm kind of.
That's not even available in the CTS, is it?
No, I meant the previous CTS. I do see previous model CTSs with a single exhaust running around town.
Right.
And so that says to me, hey, that was the standard model with no, not the premium or the sport or the performance. So you would get rid of the 2.5 liter inline 4 altogether and start off with the 2-liter turbo at 30, and then move up to the 3.6 liter somewhere in that 30 to 45 range.
Yeah, the 3.6 base car, 3.6, probably should come in at about 35.
Or
and
36. There you go. 36 for the 3.6.
yeah, that'd work. And but start the base engine at just a hair under 30. Start the, the
29,995.
start the 3.6 at about 35 or 36, and then the option packages that you add to them, would go up from there.
Same thing with the Escalade. Why does the Escalade cost $70,000?
Now, some of them more than that, but yeah.
Yeah, that didn't make good sense to me. That I would sell as many Escalades as I could, and I would take $10, $20, $15,000 off the price of that puppy and pump them out of the factory in Arlington.
Because you can go buy the GMC Yukon Denali, which is an Escalade in everything except name, for $15,000 or more, less than the loaded Escalade.
Yep. So I think that I get that they're getting every nickel the market will bear from selling Escalades, but I think that's the wrong approach. I'd rather see them move twice as many Escalades and at 10% less money and make a whole bunch more money for the Escalade development and other Cadillac development and get more people in the showroom.
Because when I've sold stuff off and on at various times all my life.
Yes.
And I always
any of Jim's cars are for sale. If you ever see him out at the supermarket, you can walk up to him and buy a car, and he'll walk home if he has to.
I sure will. If you give me the right price, I'll call a cab.
And the right price is more than he thinks it's worth.
Right.
So all you got to do is figure out what he thinks the car he's driving is worth and offer him 20 cents more.
And you bought it.
And you bought it.
But I've always made more money selling 100 of something and making $10 a piece than selling 20 and making $20 a piece.
Yes, or one and holding up one for $100 more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you absolutely can.
I could sell 100 of them and make $10 a piece and make a lot more money than selling one or two and make $100 a piece.
Especially when I've got a dealer chain with thousands of dealers to sustain, right?
Exactly.
That to me, driving to let's sell as few as possible for as much as possible is a mistake, a big mistake.
So the only way a factory runs efficiently is at volume. If you're running low volume, then you've got people standing around that you're paying big bucks to, because they're all union, most of them. So you're paying a lot of money, a lot of overhead that's totally unnecessary.
Well, what Cadillac? The Escalades are coming out of a shared line at the Arlington and other factories, and so if they're not shipping Escalades, they switch over to a different model. It's Lansing Grand River with the sedans that suffers when the sales are down because it's only making Cadillacs.
Right, but any factory, if they're making the CTS or whatever, if they're running at 75% capacity, you still have to have the same number of people there.
Yep. You're losing opportunity.
You've got the guy putting in the dash, the guy putting on the left front fender, the guy putting the wheels on. So if you're making 5 of them an hour, or if you're making 50 of them an hour, your overhead is still the same.
Yes. Okay, let's switch topics a little bit. Let me tell you. Let's talk about sales. I posted a car for sale because I'm going right along trying to keep my replica Jaguar for sale because I want to get a classic Cadillac to replace it. So let's talk about a couple of different sales models that have come to my attention. I posted the car at Craigslist. I have it for sale. You can find it there at CaddyInfo.com. It's a fun car, but I want to get another Cadillac. Okay, so the one hand. The guys over at Haggle Me called me up, HaggleMe.com, and they said, "Is your car still for sale?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And boy, that was hard because You know, I wanted to instantly tell them everything about the car because I enjoy talking about it. I said, yes, it is. And they said, we'd like to put it, could we take and put an ad for it on HaggleMe.com? Won't cost you anything. Can we put it for sale on HaggleMe.com? And I said, well, sure. There's pictures of it there, and there's more pictures on the CaddyInfo thread, and so that would be great. You know, help yourself. Now, what HaggleMe.com does is they're running consignment sales. So they look at, you got a car for sale, but maybe you're not marketing as well as you should be, or could be, or we could. So they go take your car that you have for sale and they mark it up slightly and put it for sale on HaggleMe.com and get better. So in other words, they've taken it on consignment. So let's say I see you have a car for sale for $10,000 that I think will sell for $15,000. Hey there, Jim. How are you? He doesn't have his ears on yet.
I heard that.
Welcome, welcome.
Amazing.
Good to see you.
Good.
So HaggleMe.com works as a virtual car lot, a consignment car lot. The way consignment sales work is instead of me buying a car from you and then putting it for sale on my lot, normally consignment is done as a collaborative enterprise in which, for example, I might take the car over to a consignment lot. I still own the car until it sells. The consignment lot sells it, and then they keep some agreed percentage of the sales price. Now, what HaggleMe.com is doing instead is if they see you have your car for sale for $10,000 and they think it might sell on their site for $15,000, they will take the images and information about it, advertise it on their site for $15,000, and then if they sell it, then they would buy it from you for your asking price and sell it to their customer for their asking price. What do you think about that kind of model?
I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah,
No. It's kind of like flipping houses. So
I've done that before too.
Yeah, it's very much like flipping cars without having to own the car during the flip.
Right, exactly.
In other words, they feel that they have a wide market that they can market to. Now compare that to a second model. I had some gentlemen call me, same question. They and they're getting my number, of course, through the Craigslist ad. So they've got my cell phone number because I listed it there on the Craigslist ad. So same question, do you still have the 39 Jaguar replica for sale? Yes, I do. So let me tell you all about what we can do for you. We can guarantee that your car will sell in the next 30 to 45 days. We'll put it up for sale on our 10, 12 different affiliated websites for classic cars. And we'll place an ad for sale across our websites, and that service will cost you $299. Now, so the two things caught my ear there. One was $299 right before I hung up. The other was we'll guarantee that it will sell.
Okay. What happens if they guarantee it will sell and it don't?
I think what happens is they continue the ad forever. In other words, they're saying, if we don't sell it within 6 weeks, we'll keep posting your ad until it does sell.
Well, that's better than getting you $300 back, and it doesn't cost them anything. I'm being a little irony there between the lines.
Yeah, yep. So that, now I understand a little bit better that frequently in Craigslist ads, I'll see people put the phrase, no, I don't need help selling this car. And so now I understand that phrase a little bit better, because apparently there are many of this type of service which will call and say, hey, we'd like to broker your car for you, or we'd like to, put your car in our advertising service in exchange for a fee.
Well, I don't like it because they make $300 off of you regardless. If they don't know or care whether your car is going to sell.
Now that is the classic model, of course. In the old days, you you would call up the newspaper and you would pay them for an advertisement, right?
Not $300.
And they might renew the ad for free if the car didn't sell for one time, but it costs something. You know, newspaper ads weren't cheap. So, of course, Craigslist is free, and posting on eBay costs a commission to eBay, but the auction post itself is free, I guess, right? It doesn't cost you something until it sells, right?
Depends on how you post it.
On eBay, yeah.
If you have a reserve, it does. And if you don't have a reserve, you can sell the car for $10.
Okay. So there's a fee there. So again, comparing the Haggle Me consignment approach to the approach from these other guys, I'm really even more drawn to it, right? They call up and say, we think we can sell your car for more than you're asking.
Well,
obviously
they're going to say that. They're not going to call up and say, you know, hey, I want you to pay $300 and I'll run an ad on it. It might sell and it might not.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to buy it on that.
I'll tell you that if you'll give me $300.
Yeah, there you go. And so obviously that's not appealing to me, but it made the HaggleMe.com approach even more appealing, right?
Okay, but let me just mention one thing. I sit here all day and do quite a bit of internet work. And I go to various car sites and I do searches for various things. And I've never heard of HaggleMe.com.
Now I have, and where I saw them is I use a site called Trovit, Trovit, Trovit. Trovit only does searches of for sale ads. And so, in other words, when you go to Trovit.com, it'll ask you, are you shopping for a car? Are you shopping for, it asks you a couple of different questions. Let me see if I'll put, I actually want to talk about this for a moment because Trovit is, I had mentioned this when Jim and I were visiting one week, and Trovit's actually one of my, so I go to Trovit.com. Can you see my screen now?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, let me go lock the video in on my thing for a moment. Okay, so if I go to Trovit.com and it asks me, what do you want to search for? So I pick out cars. Now I'm going to put in Cadillac convertible. And what Trovit does is you can't submit your car to Trovit, but what they do is they go look for across for sale ads in different forums. So now Cadillac convertible picked up some other things, Chevy Impala convertible, because it mentions Cadillac somewhere in it. So now I have to go in with the filters, and I'm gonna enter in the filters. I'm gonna tell it I'm looking for a 1903 to a 1970.
Make it 76.
No, I don't want an Eldorado. I want to, and I'm going to tell it only show me Cadillacs. So now I've got it filtered for 1903 to 1970 only Cadillacs. So now it's focused in to just show me Cadillacs. So here's this. This is a 1970 Eldorado that one family's estate pulled in, a 67 Cadillac convertible.
Mm-hmm.
Now when I click on it, then see this is taking me to salesgood.com, which may be another sales search engine, right?
Yep.
I would think so, yeah.
And so once you click on each one, it'll take you off to whatever the source was. So unfortunately, I was hoping I had seen a Cadillac convertible out in Greenville, South Carolina, and I'm not going to get to go on my South Carolina trip, unfortunately, but I was really hoping to go out and visit that car while I was in South Carolina. It may have already sold, in which case, no loss. Okay, TradeNet Classics. Now, so where I have seen Haggle Me, though, is in this kind of search. That, in other words, some of the postings on this Trovit will end up going to HaggleMe.com or to other sites. But I found this very useful, and they ferret out some sites that I would not have heard from and searches that I would not have found otherwise. Craigslist, you can get kind of Craigslist search engines that will search across all of Craigslist, not just your region, and show you, specific search terms. But I have found Trovit.com gives me, rich results for specific classic car searches at least. Now, Cars.com is still my favorite for new or near new, and that's where we zoned in on Jim's new CTSV, and that's where we zoned in on my wife's ATS. It was on Cars.com. So back to the original question, which was, what do you think about the HaggleMe? So now if I told you that's how HaggleMe works, if you went to HaggleMe.com and found a car, what would your first action be?
Well, like any other buying service, I'd try to make a direct link and get out as many middlemen as possible, because these guys are just going to complicate the transaction, increase the likelihood of failure or problems.
But on the other hand, if that was how I found it, don't I feel some obligation to buy it through them? It's kind of like going to a store. I find a great item that I want on the shelf, and so I want to go ahead and buy it from the retail store to encourage them to be a retail store, right?
You want my short answer?
I want to appeal to your inner sense of justice and fair play.
Fine. You want my short answer?
Yes.
No. You don't owe them anything. They're out there fishing just like everybody else, and it's a free country, and you've got a mouse, you've got a browser, you need to sell the car the best way you can.
Now, my favorite thing whenever I'm shopping for a car is I try and take the VIN or other descriptive phrasing and put it into Google, because I want to see when else has that car been for sale, right? And where else has that car been?
You can
in other words,
cheap Carfax, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That if it was up in Baltimore, I'd like to know that it hasn't been here in Texas like the ad says, right?
Right.
Or like the ad might lead you to believe. Now, let's talk about, so, I keep searching for a classic car. I believe my parents would sell a car back in the day as soon as it got to 50,000 miles. Then they would start to shop for the next car.
Yeah.
50,000 miles was, now, so was that really the lifetime of cars in the 60s and 70s?
No, but it was in the 50s.
To go 50?
Now, a car with 50,000 miles could be sold. A car with 100,000 miles was junk in the 50s, and there are people who still think that way. And it's just not true. There are a lot of really good cars out there with 100,000 miles on them because people figure they don't want to drive them anymore. So it's just the way people think. It affects the value of the cars, but in point of fact, you can get a lot of bargains with 100,000 miles on them. They're perfectly good cars if they've got a good history.
So is that a reliability shift, though, that today we expect cars to go, from 100 to 150,000 miles, and in the 60s and the 70s you could not expect cars to do that?
I'm not sure. In the 60s and 70s, no, it was not true. Cars could go as long as you kept them maintained and they weren't subjected to salt corrosion or collision damage or abuse in the 60s and 70s, but it wasn't that well known. In fact, you'll recall that the 70s was the period when the FUD started, that American cars were designed where everything went bad at 80,000 miles. You remember you started hearing that in the 80s.
I'll be right back.
It wasn't true then.
Thanks, Jim.
What happened? I'm
You had to be offline for a minute. Go ahead.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm offline myself in a sense. I'm looking for a picture to show full screen, but that's half my brain is with you. So at any rate, I have heard of cars in the 50s that if you just change your oil every 2,000 to 3,000 miles, this is before PCV valves, and you had to do that. Then you could drive them as long as you wanted. You also had to grease them every 2,000 or 3,000 miles because the suspensions were metal and metal bushings with lithium grease, if you use lithium grease.
Much higher maintenance schedules than today's cars.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I would never own anything with a generator because I've got so tired of buying a new generator. Unlike an alternator, you couldn't overhaul a generator because you had to turn the armature. And nowadays, getting the armature turned on a generator every 30,000 miles is, a bit, more than I'm willing to put up with.
Well, good. I was wondering what the big advantage. I knew people went to alternators as rapidly as they could, but I wasn't clear what the technology advantage was, and because alternators are much lower maintenance, is what you're saying.
Yeah, there are they traded commutators brushes, which sparked and arced and burned much more rapidly than regular just simple contact brushes for diodes. And the diodes have no moving parts, and they don't spark. So the
Right.
diodes pretty much last forever unless they get overheated or overvoltaged. So that's the trick. I think I can't find that picture.
Now, I don't know. I don't understand why everybody is afraid to try to rebuild an alternator on your own in your
Oh,
garage.
I've done it. I've done it a number of times.
I've done it a number of times.
Yeah, it's very simple.
I've done it in Colorado on vacation in the parking lot in front of the auto store where I bought the brushes and bushings and
Yeah.
regulator.
I
Took the
changed the
alternator
piston.
off, took it apart, put a regulator, put brushes, put bushings in it, put it back together, put it back on the car.
Yeah.
Went on
Well,
the road.
but the answer there is that the average person today doesn't have auto mechanic background, right?
That's
I mean,
true.
you feel comfortable with that, but I think there are mechanics that don't feel comfortable with that these days.
Yeah, there's a lot of mechanics won't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I once honed a cylinder, changed the piston, and did a top-end job on a motorcycle over a campfire at night with a.
While the motorcycle was en route to Colorado.
No, we were all on a trip, and I had a bowl of Franks and beans on my other knee at the time, and then I rode it home that night.
But uphill both ways.
No, it was Texas Hill Country, mostly level, but
There's hill country, but it's mostly level.
yeah.
That's it. Well, it's
Well, that's the way
it
the
depends
Texas
on your perspective. It wasn't like hills of Carolina; it was the hills of Texas, so mostly level.
Well, it depends on where you're talking about the hills of Texas. They got some hills in West Texas that you'd have trouble pulling with a lot of cars.
Okay, last topic for the evening. Automobile services. AAA, of course, is the most famous one. I was surprised that there's actually something called General Motors Service that costs that. And the big advantage to AAA is if you get stopped somewhere, you can call them, and the first 10 miles of towing is free, or they'll come bring you gas or help you unlock your car. I was actually surprised that there's something called a GM service that is similar that offers longer range towing for about $50 a year. And I was surprised to find that for the Jaguar, my Haggerty insurance had a rider with it that I've been paying for. That's a similar to AAA, where you can call and get free towing for the first 10 miles back home and not worry about it. And I was challenging a friend of mine when I was a friend of the family when I was in Arkansas was telling me he had taken his 1960 Skylark from southern Arkansas to Little Rock and back. And I said, well, weren't you worried that you'd break down somewhere and you'd have to get it towed? And he said, no, I got AAA, and I just call them and have them tow it. And so what do you think about, and Jim's showing us, I'll flip over to Jim's thing. So Jim, you're showing us a late 40s or early 50s Cadillac?
I think it's a 56, 55
Okay.
or 56. I'm pretty sure it's in that year range. But I took a closer look at it, and it's a lot worse than it looks.
Yeah. Yes.
But they tried to put its good side out toward the street.
Right. Is this in your neighborhood?
It's near where I live. I wouldn't say it's in my neighborhood. It's about 15 miles away out in the country. It's visible off the side of the road. It was. The last couple of times I've been out that way, I didn't see it. There was a Buick right next to it, but about the same vintage, 55, 56. Pretty sure it's a 56. You can tell the license plate is rusted nearly off.
Yeah.
And the reason the hood looks a little loose is because there's no hinges on it. It's just set on. There's also no motor in there.
I do like the look of that of the that.
Yeah, it's got a good
Cadillacs look during that period. Yeah.
It's got a good front bumper, and that's basically what they're showing. That, and it looks like a Cadillac if you don't get too close. You get too close, it looks like, compost.
So you got your choice of AAA. Haggerty's got this thing. There's apparently something called a GM Club. What do you guys think about that kind of road service where you pay you pay an annual fee of, $50, $75, $100, and they offer you tow service and emergency services?
I think it's a good idea if you're going to be doing travel alone and you're not going to be in cell phone range. I think the GM service is particularly good because I can bet you can link it with OnStar. So
now,
yes.
Do you carry any of those services? Do you pay for a service like that?
Well,
OnStar.
Yeah, but see, the first 50,000 miles, GM offers that for free on Cadillac, so they're just offering it as a fee service on other cars. I'm sure there are limits to what they can service with their fleet that's intended for newer cars. But
now,
it's probably pretty extensive.
The OnStar Safe and Sound is similar, but certainly more expensive, right?
Well,
by the time you do 12 months at $16 a month.
The OnStar Safe and Sound just gets the guy on the way. It doesn't pay him. The policy pays him. But the OnStar, what I'm just saying is that if you've already got OnStar, any flavor, the Safe and Sound is the base, and they probably can transfer you to the people that do the road service because they already do for cars with 50,000 miles on them. That's part of the deal when you buy a new Cadillac they give you free road service for 50,000 miles. I actually used it once. I had a flat tire. The second day
I did as well. When I shredded my tire, I called OnStar, and they sent a flatbed and picked it up, took it over to the dealer where Texas Jim met it, and got it over to the tire place.
Yeah.
So what about you, Texas Jim? Have you ever used AAA or a similar service?
Negative. I have.
And would you?
I have OnStar also. And
what about in your van?
I probably wouldn't. I would probably never use one like that because, well, in all my years, I've never needed one. So if I had this for all these years, I would have already paid several $1,000s. Which even if I needed one every few years, I can still pay for it cheaper out of my pocket than I could paying that.
Now, you travel all the time, long distances. If you were to break down on the road, what do you do?
Call AAA. That way you get a certified towing service.
Yeah, but if you don't have AAA.
Oh, that's okay. Call them anyway. You just pay them.
AAA, of course, acts as a broker, right? And they'll send a tow service.
Well, you don't get a pathological serial killer. That's the difference. They're
probably
right. Through AAA, yeah. AAA does offer some perks. They also have set rates that the guys agree to, so you're not going to be paying $2 a foot like that guy who took a cab in New York last month. You heard about that, didn't you?
No, I did not.
Yeah, he hopped in a cab and wanted to ride to another airport. It turned out it was another terminal, and the guy charged him $150 for a 75-foot ride, and he started howling. The guy locked the doors and was beating the shit out of him. The cops came up and threw the cab driver in jail.
Oh, no.
Yeah, made to wire services. Pardon my French.
So I think this would make an interesting article, and I haven't sat down to write out a blog post on this topic about comparing AAA, and I hadn't even thought about OnStar in that way, but comparing OnStar service to AAA to this GM service to something like insurance company offers and so on. I actually think I do have on my USAA insurance. I think that's one of the choices you can opt in or opt out of towing support on the car insurance as well.
Yeah,
so we really ought to address every and I wouldn't even remember to use that if I was if the car was broken. I'd forget that I probably have towing insurance on my car insurance.
Well, call your Yeah, call your insurance agent, and they'll tell you whether or not you have towage coverage. Or at
Well,
least
it's right there in the policy. I can pull the PDF down, and that'll tell me whether I opted in or opted out for that.
Yeah.
But that's another way to go, right? Is to contact them and have them send a tow service that they like. Now,
Yeah,
the big
that's right.
thing that this GM service advertises is they'll tell you, they cover the first 50 miles or some larger range of towing, and then the other feature is they'll take you where you want the car to go. So
Yeah.
in other words, if you didn't want to, I would take my car over to Crest, or to Tim's shop up at Carroll Custom Cadillac. But so if they have to go by 5 other mechanic places on the way to that shop, that's still okay.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess the USAA rule was we'll take you to the nearest place.
Caveat emptor presence.
The place you want to go, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take you to the nearest tire store, not necessarily the place you want to go. So
I had a battery problem at 60,000 miles, and I called OnStar, and I didn't know about the road service cutoff because I hadn't used it. And they asked what mileage it had. I told them. They said, well, we can call AAA for you, but we can't give you free road service over 50,000 miles. And that's where I found out about the limit. So I thanked them politely, and I was in the parking lot of what's that place that Sears bought? Kmart. So I basically determined it was dirty battery cables, and went in and got enough stuff to fix it right there on the spot and drove it home. But that would have happened with OnStar, if I'd been.
I have to disagree about the 50,000 because I've had them come out. I had to get a jump on mine, and I'd let it sit in the garage for 2 weeks with my radar detector and cell phone charger on, ran the battery down, and I called OnStar, and they sent a truck out, to charge the battery and jump it off if necessary.
Well, this was a 97 model in 2001, and yours is a 2006 model. Has to be later than that. So OnStar has changed fundamentally since then. They are a different service than they were.
So I need to go explore that, and then
the warranty's
we
different
need
too.
to detail what kind of coverage do we have these days on our Cadillacs, so that we know when we can call and when we haven't. Thank you guys very much for being on tonight. We've run 4 minutes over our time already. Cadillac Jim, thanks for joining us.
Well, good to be here. Sorry I missed the start. I got off in other things and forgot.
No worries at all. Glad you're able to join us. We missed our friend Tim Carroll tonight because he was busy painting cars. We missed our friend KHE tonight. Hope you're doing well out there, Kevin. Texas Jim, thank you for being on.
Not a problem. Always enjoy it.
Now, I'm gonna write another angry note to myself to pre-post the topics so that we all have an opportunity to think through what the topics are. We were saying Jim was just reminding me that that actually worked better for everybody, so that you can see the topics ahead of time. Thank you guys for being on. Have a good 4th of July, and happy 4th of July if I don't see you tomorrow. It's in the United States. We celebrate the 4th day of July as Independence Day. Any last words before we sign off, guys?
I've got a good story about the 4th of July.
Go ahead.
No, not tonight. Save it for another night.
No, it's a real short one. It's a real short one.
Okay, go ahead.
This friend of mine, his wife's birthday is on the 4th of July, and he posted a thing on Facebook earlier. He said, I almost forgot, but I ordered the fireworks for you for your birthday.
I bet there were fireworks at his house.
Yeah.
I bet there were fireworks.
Nationwide. He said he because he loves her so much, he's having fireworks.
Everywhere in the city.
Her birthday.
Yeah, down at the city park. Yep.
Yeah, I either heard fireworks going off early this afternoon or one of my neighbors has been shot. I'm not sure which. Okay, I'm going to hit stop broadcast. Hold on, guys.